Hey, I'm Tim Cummins and welcome back to UT, University of Tim, here on our e-learning seminar for Whirlwind Missions. Man, I'm glad you're back, baby. Welcome aboard. Glad to see you. This section, we're going to talk about newsletters some more. I've got some clear ideas about that. First off, this. Remember when I said in the last section about how this is the MTV Instant Everything generation? That presupposes that it better be short, okay? I have a friend of mine that says you put everything you do and you write through the newsletter list, through the bathroom list, where if it takes you longer to read that newsletter than it does to sit in the bathroom, then it's probably too long. Well, that's kind of a crude way to put it, but I think that's the right way to do it. The fact of the matter is that Americans don't like to read. Now you think, well, that's not true. They read magazines, they read, Reader's Digest. Right. And what are those? Very short articles, a lot of pictures. You ask yourself, out of all your friends you know, how many read books, which is page after page of text? How many do you think do that? Well, it's fewer than half of Americans read books at all. But popular magazines continue to be to grow. So, you've got to have real short articles. Spacing is important. If the text in your article is too dense, or it's just a thick paragraph with not a lot of spacing, people give up. Most people are lazy readers. So you've got to have make it more like when you read newspaper articles. Paragraphs, they're, as we learned in high school and college about how to write a paragraph with a topic sentence and supporting sentences and then a conclusion sentence, that's good. But I think writing style is actually better if it's more like newspaper journalism. If you see how newspapers do it, how they tend to have a lot of line breaks, how they do have a lot of indentations, because that helps the eye to read the paragraph or the story because the print's not so dense. I think that most of the time you can write your story and cut out about half of it. It needs to be action oriented. I'm also a big believer in using quotes where you're actually telling stories. If you ask yourself, well, what did the preacher preach about last Sunday? Oftentimes the only thing you can remember is the stories that he's told. So you need to make sure that you're following that precept and that you're always telling stories. So you set up the story and you'll have, just as if you were there, what they said, quotation points, what you said, quotation points, and then a summation at the end, but you're trying to get across the picture of what you're doing. Now, does that mean that you always have to have success stories? Not at all. The fact of the matter is that in community development work and in direct evangelism like what we're doing, a lot of the stories are just flat painful. They're sad. People losing their homes, people going homeless, kids getting into gangs, kids getting into trouble and going to jail. And the fact of the matter is when you share those stories, man, again, people say, golly, man, that Tim Cummins, man, that guy's in the front lines. That guy's doing some tough work, man. We need to make sure we keep supporting Tim. Now, remember, all this newsletter stuff is about raising your support, right? And every year when a budget comes down in August, when those guys have to come out and look and see who they're going to support, and they look at the pregnancy centers and the clothes closets and the food pantries, and they look at stuff like what we're doing, which is direct evangelism in the community, and they hear about what we're going on, and they have a drop in the economy and they have to decide we're going to cut somebody. Man, they don't cut me. They cut support to the food pantry or the clothes closet, but they don't support direct evangelism going on in the community because there's so few of us doing that. Everybody wants to sit in some center and have everybody come to them. But remember, Whirlwind Missions, our whole philosophy is you've got to take the church to the people. That's what separates us from the hue and cry. That's what you need to be a part of to make sure that you do that. So, keeps down to maybe one or two stories. I have 3 pages. Now, right now, my daughter is also on staff with me, so I write the first page, which I call the outreach update. If you look on our website, you can see the actual archives of the articles, but you'll see on the row around, the area around the article, I've got pictures here, so it's extremely graphic. And then the second page has Ashley's article, and she's got pictures in a very similar protocol. And then the third page is nothing but pictures. And usually I just put maybe 2 or 3 pictures, so they're big. So when you're taking pictures for your newsletters, you need to stay with, I'm not a believer in candid shots. I believe every picture has to have me looking at you. That's personalized. That's the stuff that makes impression on people. And they're all smiling. Hey, this is the best thing ever, right? Pictures of the volunteers, pictures of the people that you're working with. Direct look into the camera, make it big, have fewer pictures but have more pictures. The wide shots where you show a big group of people or something like that, that might have some effectiveness, but stick with the individual shots, maybe 3 shots where you have 3 people in the picture, but crop it up so it's pretty close to the faces so that you see everything. And because that's what really makes people want to support what you're doing is those big pictures. If you see a newsletter and ask yourself, how long is this going to take me to read? And if you see this tiny little picture about this big and it's a group shot, you can't say any fake. To me, that says a whole lot of nothing. You've got to make sure that your pictures are big. I use Publisher right now. I think that's a great program, but there's a lot of other programs out there in the market that you can use too, but make sure that you don't make it so complicated that you never want to do the newsletter. Some of them look so daggum slick that, you know, it takes them 10 hours just to produce it. Usually it takes me about 3 hours to produce it. It takes about another hour because I have all the kids at the mission help me label everything, and it takes me about 2 hours to write a little personal note at the bottom. Howdy, Joe. Thanks for your support. Praying for you. Love you, Tim. And I'm a big believer in you got to have that little handwritten note in there too. So if you follow these things and you do keep the thing, keep the big pictures in there, make sure that you keep up with your supporters and follow the protocols in what we're talking about there. Let me tell you, man, you're going to have a good newsletter. It's going to be a newsletter that people are going to post up on their church thing. I like to use brightly colored paper. Some of my friends print them off on their own printer and make it color. I'm all for that. Use all of that. The next up, we're going to talk a little bit more about marketing and the use of the internet and the free information that you can do on that. But for now, if you ain't writing a newsletter, go and start working on it right now. Amen? Well, thanks for listening to this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session.